Welcome to episode 327 of the DFO Rundown, brought to you by Fountain Tire. They specialize in tire and auto service, and you don't have to settle for a good deal or customer service because at Fountain Tire, they'll give you both. It'll be great. Treat your vehicle like it's your vehicle. If you need new tires or maybe your engine has a little rattle, stop in at Fountain Tire and they'll sort you out. Make an appointment today at fountaintire.com. I'm Jason Greger. We welcome in Frank Saravalli, and a happy Thanksgiving to all of our Canadian listeners and viewers. It'll be some afternoon games in Canada today, some night games, some national games. Sidney Crosby, Frank, could become the 10th NHL player to have 1,600 career points tonight.
I say he does it.
Oh, yeah. Be surprised not. Yeah, those guys don't wait very long. His teammate of Jenny Malkin had scored, became the 37th player to have 1,300 points in their last game. So only a matter of time before Sid, the not so much kid anymore, gets to point 1,600.
Yeah, I love the new NHL commercial where he says kids these days. It was just such a great ending, and I thought the whole thing was really well done. Love to see the participation by some of the best young players there are. And I think when you consider the message too of that commercial, and I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it really does feel like right now we're in a golden age of NHL talent. Like there was a period of time 8 years ago where you could say we weren't. And the guys that have come in the league since then, 10 years ago, it's been jaw dropping. When you see just, watch any, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't have to be two top end teams. When you see the plays that these guys make with the puck on their stick at full speed, it's off the charts different than what it was 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, no, it's a different game. No question about it. Obviously it's a little bit faster than it's ever been before. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I'd also say, it's less physical. There's more comebacks than ever. What are we, 40 games into the season? There's already been 20 comeback victories so far. So it's half your games are comeback wins. So that's good. It means you never want to leave early. We've seen third period comebacks of multiples goal differential. So that's a good sign. But anybody who hasn't seen it, Sidney Crosby's at the end, but it has all the young guys, McDavid and McKinnon. Although McDavid's in year 10, crazy enough, but he's still young by, in life standards, but it is crazy that he's in his 10th season in the National Hockey League.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Penguins. I mean, let's start there because they're 3 games in, they're 1-2. I thought it was fascinating that the last 2 games, the Penguins in net have gone with Joel Blomqvist, who is 23 years old. And you listen to Coach Mike Sullivan, he gets back-to-back games. Mike Sullivan says it's game 3 of the Penguin season, and he says, we're going with the best lineup that gives us a chance to win, which in parentheses that I'm not sure a ton of people picked up on is Tristan Jarry is not giving the Pittsburgh Penguins the best chance to win. Obviously, let's in 6 in their season opener as they got thumped by the Rangers, but have the Penguins already at this juncture arrived at a crossroads with Tristan Jarry?
That's one game, right? That would seem like a pretty quick one.
I would disagree. I would say he had 51 very middling games last year.
Yeah, well, yeah, last year wasn't very good either, but what a coaches and everybody always talk about, last year's last year. So if the coach says last year doesn't mean anything as far as this year, then he should, if he's keeping true to his word, then it's only one. But I understand that they're saying, hey, you know what? He didn't give us what we wanted in game 1. Now Blomqvist also won their second game, right? So I could see it'd be kind of easy. I would assume Tristan Jarry starting tonight. But if he isn't,
maybe not. All I'm saying is that's an early message to send, which is this guy's only in year 2 of a 5-year deal, 5.375. And there's a chance, and I'm not look, I'm not writing off Tristan Jarry on October 14th. Like, please don't mistake the message. All I'm saying is, if you look back, there's a real chance that Kyle Dubas's first summer as Pittsburgh Penguins GM last year might have put this team in an even tougher spot than they should have been.
With
Eric
Jarry
Carlson trade,
yeah.
Tristan Jarry extension, some other extensions that or signees that I don't know necessarily make a ton of sense. Where does that leave them?
Well, goaltending, Frank, that's why I'm always leery when it comes to term with goaltenders. I think there's a select few, and then after that, it's honestly from year to year, it's a tough position, and we've seen guys go up and down, and so you'll see what happens with the Penguins. It is obviously early, but they missed the playoffs last year. I didn't have them as a playoff team this season. I don't love their depth, to be honest. So, we'll just kind of see how it goes. And the funny thing is, it's already early on, but they're far from the only team that's maybe got some question marks. Like, I don't know if you saw Jared Bednar. I'm trying to remember, when was the last time your starting goalie was pulled in consecutive games? And, Georgiev gets pulled in game one after 40 minutes, allows 5 goals to Vegas. Then against Columbus, he allows 3 goals in 21 minutes. And if you look at, like, the first goal, he had no chance on. That was a great play by Werenski. But if you look at the second goal by Johnson, he's beat from outside the circle, the dot on the circle on the right side, up over the shoulder, should make that save. And then a $121 into the second period, Fantilli's shot goes right through them from almost the same angle, and he's out. And then Annunen, in his 2 relief appearances, he's allowed 4 goals on 13 shots. So
leading us to a waiver claim of Capo Kakinen.
Yeah, before the games.
Yes.
So yeah, that's
so they're sensing and feeling, even with the waiver claim, before that's even happening. Like, they're diagnosing this in real time. Hey, this isn't very good.
Yeah, no.
And here's the thing. Alexander Georgiev played 74 games last year. Way too much. That includes playoffs. Oh, yeah. But 63 in the regular season at, by the way, sub 900 save percentage, 897. Then has 11 more in the postseason, also at 897. League average last year, I want to just double check this number. I think it was 903.
Yeah.
6 points under league average save percentage. That's tough.
Yeah. Well,
and then to go into the summer and not fix it and just think that all of a sudden, yeah, there are cap. We've talked a lot about how the Avalanche are going to be one of the biggest wild cards in the league this year, especially until they can get Nichushkin and Landeskog back. They've got that cap space devoted that they can't spend. But it seems crazy to me that they went into it not thinking that needed a fix. At least get a more quality backup than Annunen. And I know they're high on him and they think that he can get it together and get there. He's still only 24. And his numbers were pretty good last year, 14 games at 928. But to think that you're going to rest Stanley Cup hopes on these 2 guys as your netminders just doesn't seem like the strongest bet.
No. Now, Capo Kakinen, I think they're going to hope that, because for 2 years in San Jose and 64 starts, he was an 888 save percentage. Now, he did in 6 games go to New Jersey and post a 924, smallest sample size, but obviously Colorado is hoping that Kakinen's numbers, because if you look kind of prior San Jose and Minnesota, and even his first year in San Jose, it wasn't bad, pretty decent numbers. But the last 2 years overall haven't been great for him. So we'll see that they think, goaltending, it just shows you it's a crapshoot, man. Even like we talk about the skill of the players today, Frank, and it's like there's Vasilevsky's, of course, and Bobrovsky's pretty good goaltender, and there's a few of them, Hellebuck, but even Connor Hellebuck in the playoffs for some reason gets lit up like a Christmas tree. And it just, there doesn't seem to be the Patrick Waugh, the Dominic Hasek's, the Marty Brodeurs. Now, maybe it's because
there are those, like there's, I mean, I would say Vasilevsky and Shesterkin and There's a select few of those guys. Like,
Yeah, but
think about, and we've talked a lot about his contract situation, but think about Shesterkin and his numbers to this point. He's likely, if he continues at this pace, to go down as the best goalie in New York Rangers history. Better than Henrik Lundqvist, better than Mike Richter. So I'd say he's in the elite of the elite category. My point is there's maybe 5 to 7 at the very most that you feel really comfortable resting your head on the pillow at night as a security blanket saying, we've got that guy that covers up a lot of our mistakes.
yeah, there's not many.
Everyone else, it makes you wonder why teams feel the need to jump in and give the midterm contract that's 5 years at $5 million plus. How many of these bad examples have we seen over the years?
Well,
Jack Campbell being the latest one.
Yeah, I think it shows that Cal Peterson. It shows teams that they take bets. Frank, it's like they're Fred Flintstone, bat on wondering who's going to this guy. You know what? He had a good year. Okay, let's lock him in. And
but for what? Like, what is
they're desperate?
Well, desperate for mediocrity. Like, what are we? What are you desperate for? That's the first thing you can do to get yourself in trouble. Like, why not just say, hey, I'm going to give you a 2-year deal at that number, or I'm going to give you a 2-year deal at even maybe a higher number so that I don't get locked into the term slightly higher. And if you don't like it, I'm going to go out and get someone that can do exactly what you do for half the price. Why do teams like, so then that is a decent little segue into, okay, Jeremy Swayman got paid. What's Stuart Skinner going to get paid?
Well, he's got this year and next year in his contract.
But he's going to be the next interesting test case.
Yeah.
Is Stuart Skinner, I know what his numbers say they are, but does anyone think that Stuart Skinner's pedigree and track record and consistency line up with any of the others?
Well, I think it depends how you look at it. Like, he's 2 years into his career, right? It's not like the guy's been in the league a long time, right? Like, 2 years is, I think it's not a very big sample size at all. If you look at last season when Chris Knobloch arrived, Stuart Skinner's numbers, he led the league in wins. He was 5th in save percentage, 6th in goals against average, 7th in adjusted save percentage, which a lot of the goalie people value even more. Obviously in the playoffs, struggled his first 20 career playoff games. His last 15 were really good. So is it a young guy who's getting comfortable in the game? Right. I think at times we're a little bit, Stuart Skinner got thrown in to be a starter because, as you mentioned, Jack Campbell was a bust. So they didn't want him to do that. Right. Whereas if you force feed a defenseman and say, well, this guy's playing top pair minutes when he shouldn't, everyone's like, well, hey, geez, he shouldn't be playing there. But if a goalie struggles, people are like, wow, he's not very good. I think at times teams got to figure it out and stop rushing guys. It's a position that historically takes longer for guys to get comfortable in the NHL. There's very few comfortable goalies under the age of 25, right? I think it's as much mental as anything else. So Stuart Skinner, to me, it's way too early to know what he is. Like, he's played 2 seasons in the NHL.
Okay, so what do you make of the Joey Daccord signing then?
Yeah, well, that's one. You know what, Frank? It's based off of 40 games last year. There's nothing else they base it on.
50 games,
yeah. His second half of the season, though, he was excellent. And so I think they.
But does that bring you to 5 times 5, or do you just
it should have at the end of this season, right? Like, why rush to sign Joey Daccord? Like, honestly, like, he had a good year.
So then maybe let's try and think about this from Seattle's perspective. Maybe they say, well, what if he goes out and duplicates that again? Then what does that end up costing us?
Yeah, fair.
But I look at that and I would say, if he does that again, that means we probably make the playoffs, which is a really good problem to have. And if we can't come to some sort of amicable arrangement, there's going to be 14 other good goalies available that I could sign. Like, they just are getting to the very end of this cap hell with Philip Grubauer. They still have 2 years left after this one. 6 years times $5.9 million. And his track record and pedigree was really pretty good.
Yeah, it's honestly, I have a lot of empathy. I would err on the side of caution all the time when it comes to signing goaltenders.
How many playoff bound teams are doing that? I'd say most of them, right? You either have the stud or you have the value tandem.
Yeah, like Florida,
being
Tampa,
caught in middle ground is just death.
Dallas, Winnipeg, obviously they've got their clear stars. The Rangers have an obvious starter. The Islanders, I still think they just have a really good backup. But I still think Sorokin's a pretty good starter.
Well, he's signed to 825 for the next 8 years.
Yeah.
So I'd say they're quite set on.
Yeah. So he's a pretty good goalie. Like, you know what? Like Vasilevsky's numbers last year weren't great. Does anybody think he's not still a good goaltender? He's coming off an injury, right? There's always other things you have to consider when you look at it. I won't be surprised if his numbers are back to where they were before. I do believe players coming off an injury, guys are playing, Frank. I think in a lot of cases, they're not close to 100% fully healthy. They're healthy enough to play. I don't think they're healthy enough to maintain the high level they played at before right away. And sometimes it takes a while for goalies.
Vegas, 6.7 million on goaltending.
Yeah.
Toronto, 4.1 on, that's with 3 guys.
Yeah. Edmonton's 3.6, but if you throw in the buyout of Campbell, it's a little bit more. There's not a lot. Now Skinner's young, right? They're kind of lucky that, Skinner's a younger goalie who's still on his, he hasn't played long enough to be paid any more than what he's getting paid.
So
right?
The Kings took on Kemper. They're at 6.25 total.
Yeah.
I mean, Carolina, they're at 5.4 total. There's going to be a ton of playoff teams. The New Jersey Devils this year, 6.05 total. And it's the best tandem they've had in years. Tell me any of those teams are worse off than the stud teams.
Yeah. Well, Florida might argue. Tampa Bay might argue.
Well, see, here's a debate that I got into, though, the other day. And I will defend this until I die. Is Sergei Bobrovsky's contract a good one or a bad one?
Overall, I have to say good. They've won the cup. They went to the cup final. He had 2 years where he didn't live up to it 100%.
I personally happen to think it's one of the worst contracts signed in NHL history.
Why though?
Second highest AAV ever given to a goaltender.
Yeah.
At a period in time when there was no one competing against you for his services. There was a faint hint that it might be the New York Islanders, but they were never going to pay $10 million a year or anywhere close to it. And then after all of that, they went out and drafted Spencer Knight in the first round.
Yeah. Well, that contract hasn't panned out nearly as well.
I'm sorry. Like, I know previous regime, all that doesn't, like, none of it makes any sense to me.
But if you look at the time, I think you have to look at the big picture. So when the Panthers signed him, they'd missed the playoffs. They hadn't won a playoff round in since like 2000 and God, not even like 96. I don't think they'd won a round since 96. So they signed him to that money, Frank. And guess what? He makes the playoffs. They've made the playoffs every year. Now it's not just him, but to me, I would argue that it is a good contract because the goal was they needed to improve. And he hasn't been perfect because most goalies aren't, but more years than not, he's given them good goaltending. And they've made the playoffs all 6 years. Now they've won. They've made some other really good trades. Don't get me wrong, right? You look at the Tkachuk trade, the Bennett trade, they've been great. And Verhaeghe signing, etc. But I would argue that the Bobrovsky signing gave him a goal. I would say the drafting of Knight and then signing him to $4.5 million when they did is an infinitely worse contract because he's not playing.
2 years ago in this chair, we would agree worst one of the worst contracts ever given out, right? Before they went to the cup final, before they won. Does winning the cup absolve you of that burden?
100%. The goal is to
Okay.
win, right? It's hard to win a championship. There's going to be lots of teams that have lots of good contracts and good players, and they never win. Like the San Jose Sharks, Doug Wilson did a amazing job. If you look at his first 16 years in San Jose, they're the best franchise in the NHL, but they couldn't get over the hump and win. I don't even blame the GM when your best players sometimes in the playoffs didn't perform well, right? So you sign guys and hope they play to their potential at the most important time of the year. It's funny. You pay the contracts in the regular season. There's no salary in the playoffs, right? But that's where you can earn your salary the most, funny enough.
I just think it's a great debate. Like, I think in a vacuum.
Like, would you agree the Knight contract has been worse?
Well, I think the Knight contract speaks to exactly what Sergei Bobrovsky was a few years ago when this contract was signed. They didn't have they were thinking would maybe do anything possible to get off of that deal.
They did, Frank, what I just said 10 minutes ago. They're desperate. And Bill Zito's done amazing work, but he'd probably be the first guy to tell you, yeah, we panicked and we were like, oh, geez, Sergei Bobrovsky. Because goaltending, Frank, I think sometimes you're scouting like this and you put your hands and it's like a horror movie and you open up your fingers to look through it because you're like, God, I can't look away, but I'm kind of nervous. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. And that's how it is for probably 80% of teams in their goaltending, because you hear all the time, well, the system in front of them. Well, if the system in front of them is that prevalent on how much success they have, then don't pay them that much. That would be my argument.
So Spencer Knight signed almost 2 years ago to the day. 2 years ago, right before the regular season opened. The thinking was at some point during this contract, Spencer Knight is going to be the guy and we'll have to do whatever we need to do with Sergei Bobrovsky.
Yeah. Well, Bobrovsky's in what? He's got 1 year left after this. So maybe then Knight will be ready. And you know what? They just had jumped
their contracts. It doesn't make any sense. Their contracts line up with each other. And they're spending $14.5 million on goaltending, which, as we just pointed out, is like 3x of what some other contending teams are spending.
Yeah. But they've been to the cup final back to back. So here's the thing. Every team is going to make an error or two in contracts. It's how you respond to it and build the rest of your team. I think Florida.
But now look at the damage, though. I would agree with you wholeheartedly. But because of the Sergei Bobrovsky contract and Spencer Knight contract, they can't keep Brandon Montour. They can't keep Oliver Ekman-Larsson, etc. They've had to make really tough decisions. How much better would that team be if they had both those guys?
Yeah, they might be better. Well, especially now with the injuries to Tkachuk and Barkov. We'll see how they do here in the first month of the season. Those two pretty significant injuries for the Florida
Feels like they're quite lucky with Barkov.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only 2 to 3 weeks. God, that looked brutal. Oof.
I just hope he's good and back for the global series in Finland, because you know what that would mean to him to be able to be there and participate. I'd love to see him get healthy in time for that.
Now let's talk about some teams off to good starts. Surprising starts, maybe. The Calgary Flames 3-0, the Utah Hockey Club 3-0, and Utah, Connor Ingram had unreal numbers last year, Frank. Right now, Utah, every game is much watch TV because it's offense galore. 5-4, 5-4, 6-5. They're scoring tons of goals. They're giving up a lot of goals. It's exciting as hell to watch. Do you think it's sustainable?
Sustainable being undefeated?
No. Just like can their offense continue to outscore the goals they're giving up?
I do.
Or will their defense just get better based on Ingram's numbers last year?
Yeah, not so much even Ingram's numbers. I think their defense will get better in general. I do think that they can continue to score at a pace, not at 5.3 goals a game, but their offense is going to be really good. I think I made the joke last pod, and if you didn't hear it, I saw Andre Tournier after their first game, and he was asked repeatedly in the press conference about his first line. And I went up to him after. I said, like, I get what people are asking, but which one is your first line? Because I think the Gunther line with McBain and Cooley is actually going to end up being their first line. And he said, everyone will see. That was his quote. And those guys are that good.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Utah, 5.3 game. Calgary, 5.33 goals a game. Vegas, 5 goals a game. You look at then the other undefeated teams early on this season, and you've got Dallas and Winnipeg, and they're kind of winning the opposite way. They're winning with Dallas has had consecutive shutouts on consecutive days for the first time since the first year of their existence in 1967-68. And they've only allowed 0.67 goals a game, and Winnipeg's at 1, who led the league last year. So 2 teams winning with staunch defense, 3 teams winning with, fire wagon hockey, outscoring the opposition and giving up a fair amount of goals. So, they'll probably both even out. Dallas is going to score more, I would assume. Winnipeg's probably going to score a little bit more than they did. But it just shows, hey, there's different ways to win, and it's kind of interesting when you look at Dallas and Winnipeg, and then you look at, like, Vegas. The Eichel line is absolutely killing it right now. Mm-hmm. And Jonathan Huberdeau is off to a good start for Calgary. Utah, we mentioned all their guys. And
first 4-point game in Huberdeau, for Huberdeau as a Flame.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make, though. I think I was wrong about the Winnipeg Jets. I picked them to finish 3rd in the division, and I have some kind of early and instant regret. I'm not saying they're going to win the division. I just think I underestimated that team's identity. We know what it is, and it's powerful, and they're deep.
Yeah.
That third line means business, right? Like they've really got that part of their lineup and game plan nailed down. So I'd like to just take an early second to apologize for that mistaken prediction and let you know.
Think they should be first or second?
Well, I think they could win the division.
Okay.
I'm not saying they will. I think they certainly have the capability to.
Yeah. Well, Dallas is going to be a tough out. I have to look at the schedule to see when those 2 teams meet, because I think, like early on, and Colorado is.
I think Colorado is the name of the game, is going to be trying to hang on as long as you can until those guys get back before they can right themselves, because the last thing you want to do is dig yourself a hole.
Yeah.
They're going to be good. They'll find a way out of it, and they're capable, but not liking what I'm seeing so far. And there's a reason why I called them heading into the season the biggest wild card in the league.
Yeah. What about the Preds early on? Not gelling so much, having a little bit of struggle scoring goals.
Yeah, I think that part is mildly concerning, that they are having some trouble scoring goals just because of all the firepower that they added. I mean, how many teams added essentially 100 more goals this offseason with the pieces that they brought in? 40 from Stamkos, 42 from Marchessault. How many did Shea score? I mean, essentially 100 goals, right? To think that team would sort of fall out of the gate, that part I didn't necessarily see coming. 3 goals in 2 games.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody saw the Edmonton Oilers' inability to score 3 goals in 3 games. McDavid, I think, has 1 shot on goal in 3 games. Their offense is, and McDavid said, he goes, our puck play is being horrific, right? Missing passes behind guys. They're dumping it in when no one's going. They're dumping it on the power play, for goodness sakes. Like they have looked completely out of sorts offensively. Obviously, they didn't get any saves in their first 2 games either. But they're because if you look, they're out shooting teams significantly at 5-on-5. They're not giving up a lot, but they can't score to save their life. Like obviously, they've been the highest scoring team in the league the last 2 years, so you think their offense is going to come, but Hyman, Draisaitl, McDavid, their big 3 guys 5-on-5 have been very quiet. Jeff Skinner was their best forward by a long shot in their 3rd game. But they got to get going offensively. Like Frank, it's been, that game against Calgary might have been the most lackluster, emotionless Battle of Alberta game I've seen in a long time.
I mean, your goalie got whacked on the back of the legs, and did we see a response after that?
The Oilers don't have it, buddy. Their forward group is easily the least physical forward group in the NHL.
But your guy Struddy made a great point on the broadcast last night, though. He said because it was Michael Backlund that slashed your goalie on the back of the leg, is like you're not going up against Mike Tyson.
Dude, I get it.
Anyone in the lineup could have said, "Hey, Michael Backlund, would you like to drop the gloves?"
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be a tough guy to fight.
There wasn't even anybody who skated over to him.
Well, yeah. By the way, we don't hand out awards on this show, but if we were to hand out MVPs of the first week with the Flames video staff, would they be in the running? Like the two polls that they had overturning goals. I mean, it completely changed. The Oilers could have been up 3-0.
Well, the Arvidsson offside was such a terrible offside for him. Like, it wasn't even close. Like,
but still, you have to be on the ball to catch it, because you could very easily be like, oh, yeah, we're just dropping the puck. Yeah. We already had a coach's challenge, and when we won that one by the grace of God, still can't really understand how the Corey Perry.
Thank you. How is that not a goal?
That's the worst goalie interference call I've ever seen.
I don't get it.
If you actually look at his skates, they're on the red line.
And he's not even covered, because it says you have to have you take away his vision while you're in the crease. He's at the top of the crease to the side of him. He's not even in front of his eyes.
But since when is actually screening a guy and taking away someone's vision? When's that illegal? That's actually the point. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, I thought that was I thought that was a terrible call, to be honest.
It was not the only one of the weekend. Certainly not the only one. That was a poor goalie interference call.
Which was the other one?
Rangers in Utah.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're not allowed to be anywhere near the crease, apparently.
Yeah.
Matt Rempe, right in front.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't get it.
Yeah. The pair, like when you're not touching the goalie and the goalie moves out and pushes you, so you move to the top of the crease, I'm like, aren't you allowed to do that? I was perplexed by it. I was like, why are they challenging that? And then it got turned over. I was like, oh my goodness. And they send out their reasoning why, but the reasoning didn't make any sense. The reasoning didn't match what the video showed.
Well, I just want to find the exact wording again. Significant presence in the crease.
Significant presence.
Okay.
They would have said that with meat and pumpkin pie, then I would have agreed this weekend. But sure, I had more of a presence of pumpkin pie than Perry had at the top of the crease. I'll tell you that.
That was bad.
Yeah. So,
and me, I'm not one of those people that's like, hey, they got it wrong. I almost never say that.
No, like the Arvidsson one was so blatantly. I'm like, what is he doing? That was symbolic of the Oilers, and their attention to detail has been completely off. Like they had two other times where they went offside on plays where you're like, how are these guys going offside? It's not U13. Like it's stunning to me.
I do want to give a little love to Calgary though, because they've been saying since training camp started, everyone's counting us out.
They work hard. I'll say that.
We think we can be better than what we've shown.
They work hard. Like their fourth line, Frank, that Huska on the road wasn't afraid to have his fourth line with Justin Kirkland, who's in his 11th NHL game, and kudos to him, scored a goal after 10 years of being drafted. He was drafted in 2014, scored his first NHL goal in his 11th game last night. So what a great story, perseverance. But you had Kirkland and Lomberg in their fourth line out against McDavid's line for 3.5 minutes, and they outscored him. Right? Like they outworked him. That's flat out. They outworked them. And Edmonton, I get everybody. Last year they did this and that. Last year is irrelevant. They don't have the same defense. They don't have the same penalty kill. They don't have the same team. I still think Edmonton's a playoff team, but what are they going to wait to be? Like 1-6-1 and then say, okay, let's start playing? Like they got to play way better.
Well, it's what cost Jay Woodcroft his job last year.
Yeah.
Chris Knoblauch has not lost 4 in a row to this point with the Oilers. This will be a test this week.
Well, they got the Flyers and Michkov on Tuesday. So there's no guarantees for the Oilers the way they're playing right now. I'll tell you that. None. So
yeah, it was interesting. Now, what about the Flyers? They had Jet Luchenko in the lineup for their season opener against Van on Friday, And then they decided we're going to have the 18-year-old sit out on Saturday for the back-to-back. They said, John Tortorella said, not putting him in back-to-backs yet.
Well, that's kind of like what the Ducks did last year, right? A little bit of a load management for a young player.
I guess. I don't know. It's an interesting thought process. Are NHL teams getting smarter?
Yeah. Or are they overthinking it? We'll see.
That's my next question.
What do you make of the Montreal Canadiens?
Rewind a few pods, and I said Montreal Canadiens near NHL playoff caliber offense. And that's without Patrick Laine. I believe they've got the gunners up front to be able to compete. The question is, how will their defense hold up over the course of a long season? That defense is improving rapidly before our eyes. How good can they be? How well can they defend?
Well, I can tell you right now, Frank, Montembeault's a main reason why they're 2-1. He's only allowed 1 goal on 73 shots because at 5-on-5, the Canadiens are right now, early on in the year, the worst team in shot against differential. They've been outshot 82-54 at 5-on-5. That's 39.7%. But Montembeault, like anybody who watched that season opener against Montreal, he was unreal. Against Toronto. And then even against the Ottawa game, I thought he made some key saves. He has looked great, and he was really good last year. People in Montreal said Montembeault is the guy moving forward for them, and he's going to have to be because the game he didn't play, they gave up 6. So, I know it's early; it's a super small sample size, but they're going to have to help their goalie a little bit more, or they're just going to say, "Hey, Montembeault is going to steal us a lot of games."
I feel pretty good about my Lane Hudson for Calder pick. Not gonna lie. I know only 3 games, but 4 points, and he's just so shifty. I don't know how you defend against how well he is on how well-rounded he is with the puck on his stick. Fast, slow, north, south, east, west, doesn't matter. The way he's been able to find lanes for both passes and shots using that edge work it's so next level. And he's got the vision and creativity to do it. He's really good.
Give me your thoughts on Jack Eichel, who has had 80 points once way back in 2018-19, but he's on fire early. He's got 7 points in 3 games. That line's been red hot. Does Jack Eichel break his career high this year at 82 points?
I say he does it. I mean, last year was his second best goal scoring effort. You just got to stay on the ice. That's the big question mark, right? Last 2 seasons at a point per game, slightly above it, but almost missing 20 games each season. 15 one year and 19 the other. I mean, it's a pretty significant chunk of time. So when answering that question, can he do it? Is he capable? For sure. Like, I don't see any reason why Jack Eichel can't be a 100-point player in the NHL. But you've got to play 82 games or 80 games to get there.
Yeah, very true. Let's welcome in Ty Yaremchuk to the pod. Ty, how you doing?
Doing great, boys. Ready to go with a new edition of Buy or Sell, brought to you by our friends at Bet365. My voice is a little croaky today, but that's all right.
Why is that?
Some people take 0-3 starts from the Oilers better than others, I suppose. Anyways, Buy or Sell is brought to you by our friends at Bet365, where you can use the promo code DAILY365 to get in on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. I love when you guys just take all of my buy or sell topics that I've written down from the night before, right before you throw to me. But the first one I had written down was, is Jack Eichel a 100-point player? Can he do it for the first time in his career? Frank, you just kind of gave your take. Jay, buy or sell? Eichel, 100-point player.
Well, he's right about games played. He's got to stay healthy, and you don't ever know that until a guy does it. So, and 100 points is hard. So I will say no, not this season.
Frank, you're buying though?
Yeah. Again, all relative to health.
Yeah.
Is the answer, would I place a wager on him getting there? I would say no, based on the track record we've seen. But can he? Yes.
All right.
He's never had a point per game pace though in his career. Help even in like shorter games.
That's not true. He had 68 and 63 last year.
Yeah, but that's not a 100-point pace.
It's close.
I know, but it's not a 100-point pace.
Yeah, it's like a 90-some point pace, or it's low 90s.
Yeah, it's 90, 89.
Yeah. Anyway, 7 points in 3 games for Jack Eichel.
That's a great start.
It's a great start. All right, next one I got for you guys. Again, talked last time I was on about how Bet365 keeps their futures bets updating throughout the year. It's kind of like watching a stock market. But the Montreal Canadiens over-under is still only 77.5, which I find crazy considering they basically did that last season. I believe. Anyways, I want to juice it up a little bit. I'm going to play the role of sportsbook here. Sorry, they were 76 last year. I'm going to say 85 points for the Montreal Canadiens in the regular season. Won't quite be a playoff team, but they'll be right there. Frank, you buy or sell? Can the Habs get to 85 points this year?
I'm selling on 85, but I'll buy on north of 80. I'm holding true to that prediction. Every team in the Atlantic finishes with at least 80 points.
Jay, can they get 85? Oh, sorry.
Look, to get from 76 to 85, they're going to have, again, knock on wood and health related, Kirby Dach for a full year and Alex Newhook for a full year. And at some point around Christmas or the New Year, Patrick Laine. That to me is it possible? For sure. I think they're a much improved team. I really do.
I don't. The early games will suggest they haven't improved their 5-on-5 play enough to be a serious contender. So I'm definitely not buying on 85. And if you gave me 80, I'd still probably take the under.
Interesting. Yeah, 76 last year. They're over under right now on Bet365 at 77.5. Next one I got for you guys. Let me know, is this a early season overreaction, or is this maybe a guy who's on the brink of being a star? Can Dylan Guenther score 40 goals this season? Buy or sell on Guenther to 40, Gregs?
It's a really good question because red hot. He's got 5 already this season. You know what? He had when he got recalled last year, he was good. But 40 goals, man, like that, it is hard to avoid any kind of little drought, even for goal scorers. So, man, 40. I love offense, but I'm always hesitant to throw at the high numbers that are hard to achieve. So, I will go under 40. I think he get 35, but 40 is pretty high bar.
He had 18 in 45 games last year, so it wasn't quite at a 40-goal pace. Frank, buy or sell? Can Guenther be a 40-goal guy for Utah?
Buy. He's doing it. He's already more than 10% of the way there. And he scored at a 34-goal pace last season since his recall. So he's already taken the next step already to start this season to close that gap between 34 and 40. And he's got a lot of time to do it.
Also, now that we've seen them in action for a little bit here, I'm kind of warming up to this Utah look and color scheme. I know they're eventually going to have a name, and we've talked about how, it's maybe a little bit of a money grab that they didn't have a name or a moniker in their first season, but I kind of like the look. I think it's pretty fresh.
So just FYI, they're keeping the same color scheme. So no matter what the logo is or what they're going to be called, these 3 colors, I think they called them rock, black, salt, and whatever, mountain blue, something. They had names for them. They're keeping these same colors. I like them as well. Like, I think they've really grown on me. And I did find out some more info being there. They couldn't even get the jerseys in time for fans to buy. These ones, the temporary ones, they can't get them in stock. So when you go to a game, there's no one wearing a Utah Hockey Club jersey because they don't sell them. They're not getting them in Utah until sometime in early November.
Wow.
So if it takes that long to get fan jerseys, imagine what they would have had to jump through to get the logo done, their branding, all the imaging, and this, new jersey built overnight. Like it would have been really difficult to do. And I kind of was with you saying, that feels like a bit of a money grab, but I don't think that's the case.
Interesting context. All right, I got a fourth one for you guys. Over on Bet365, the Edmonton Oilers opened the season at even money, plus 100 to win the division. They have now seen those odds go to plus 145. They are still the favorites. Are you buying or selling on the Oilers still being the favorites to win the Pacific Division in the regular season, Greggs?
It's a good question. They're already 6 points back of Vegas, and to win the division is... Like, honestly, yeah, I guess I'd probably still lean there. It's only 3 games.
But if you phrased it a different way and you said 6 points back of the Flames, which they also are, would that make you nervous?
No, not the Flames, but the Golden Knights. Yeah. But sorry, Calgary. No, I don't think Calgary's going to compete for the division, for goodness sakes. But yeah, Edmonton, that it's not only a slow start, it's been like, it's like turtle pace in how inefficient they have been offensively, defensively, in every aspect of their game. And the thing is, all their leaders talked about, we need a good start. We need a good start. And their leaders, guys, you don't win if your best players aren't your best players. And their best players haven't been close to their third line, the Henrique Brown line, and they had Podkolzin in the last game. That's been their best line by a landslide. And good for them. But the top 6, wakey.
Frank?
See, I love you guys, but I feel like this is when we get sucked into the Edmonton vortex of you guys seeing it so up close. Is like, take a step back and like look at it from the lens of like, they can't play any worse. Like they literally cannot. My kid was watching the game with me last night and he's like, hey, is McDavid playing tonight? Like, how often are we going to say that in the course of a season? Not very often. So will the Edmonton Oilers win the division? Yes, is my answer. And I will buy.
All right. There you go. You can still get those odds plus 145 over at Bet365. That's a wrap on this week's edition of Buy or Sell.
Yeah, I still pick them at it, but it's not that. It's just the fact that Vegas looks really good. And to win the division, that's the team you're going to have to chase.
I was saying people are sleeping on Vegas. I don't know why that is. I think their team's better than they were last year. I think people are sleeping on a bunch of teams. I think people are sleeping on the Bruins.
The concern about Vegas, though, Frank, is always, will they stay healthy? Because they get guys banged up. And you hate to say it, but at what point is Mark Stone going to be injured? You don't want it to happen, but when it's happened for 4 consecutive seasons, you do wonder if it's only inevitable. Like, does his body just physically need a rest at some point in the season? I hope not.
Do you have any concern for the Canucks?
I think Vancouver's a playoff team.
Just the way the games have played out to this point?
Yeah, the thing I like when a coach is very honest. Rick Tocchet after the first game says, I'm going to take some of the responsibility here. I focused so much on our transition game. I didn't focus on our defensive game, and we weren't defensively sharp early. I like a coach when he says that. He's like, I don't even think it's a cop-out to his players. I think it's him accepting responsibility. We can't always say, well, the coach gets coach of the year when everything's rosy, but if it isn't, well, then it's always the players. So I actually really respected that response from Rick Tocchet, because it's probably true, right? It's probably one where and it shows you, even the best players, you have to remind them over and over. For anybody who coaches young kids and you think that after 3 weeks, okay, they should remember this. No, you got to keep hammering on certain small details all year long, right? Like, you kind of got to get your basis points. And in Vancouver, that's what they wanted. Like, they beat Nashville, Frank, because they could defend. They didn't score a lot, but they didn't give up a lot, right? And they almost beat Edmonton in the same fashion, but ultimately lost because they couldn't score. So,
but you can't blow leads though. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree. But
you're up 3-0. You're up 4-1. That game should be automatically locked down.
But not anymore.
You're up 2-1 heading into the third period against the Flyers. You've already got a game under your belt. They haven't played yet this season. on home ice, you got to win.
Yeah, that's fair. Like that was not those
blown leads are not going to get it done. They're just not.
But right now in today's NHL, the great news for anybody who watches the games, it used to be, Frank, like if you scored the first goal of the game, you're like, well, geez, you could do in-game betting at that point, and you'd have dominated. Just pick the team who scored first. Thankfully,
do you know how many times my brain has exploded in this is year 16 covering the NHL full time? Do you know how many times my brain has exploded in a press conference when someone asks the coach how important is it to score the first goal?
Yeah. Well, it still does historically give you an advantage. But in the last few years in the NHL, like last year, they tied the record for most third period comebacks. Never mind comebacks at any point, but third period. So I kind of like it. Now, you guys talked about 40 goals for Gunther. There was 17 guys who scored 40 goals last season in the NHL. Do you know how many guys scored 40 goals without playing 80 games?
In their career?
No, last season. Out of the 17.
Matthews?
Nope.
How many did he play?
He played over 80.
Did he?
Yeah.
I thought he missed a couple in the last week of the season. Oh, he played 81.
He played 81.
He missed the last one. Okay.
Yeah. There's just two guys. Kaprizov scored 46 and 75, one of the best scorers in the game. And Stamkos scored 40 and 79. So everybody else was 80 or plus. Like you could, so that's why to score 40
but why
goals
are you
really
making
hard.
that point about Gunther?
Well, I'm just saying that to score 40 is A, hard, and then B, health is a major part of it. You miss even 5 or